The Zone Coverage Podcast Network.
They may be drinkers, Robin, but they're also human beings.
Hell yeah, let's get stinko.
This is the Giles and the Goalie podcast as part of the Zone Coverage Podcast Network. With your hosts, Giles Farrell and Ben Remington.
Welcome, Giles and the Goalie podcast. Back during the bye week. Fill your ear holes if you're needing a void of Minnesota Wild talk. I don't know why.
Does anybody have?
No.
Does anybody have a void of Minnesota Wild?
Nobody. I am your host, Giles Farrell. That over there is Ben Remington.
Hello.
We are, recording here on the Monday after the All-Star weekend. Did you get your fill of All-Star game festivities?
So legitimately, and people who follow me on Twitter know this, I had no idea the days had changed. So when people were talking about like everything that happened Friday night, I was like, oh yeah, that's cool. They did the whole women's 3-on-3 game, and like, you know, I saw the thing about Al McInnes shooting a bazillion miles an hour or whatever it was. And I
showed you that.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, I thought that all was like a separate deal. I still thought that, like, this is Saturday night at the Twins Daily Winter Meltdown. I thought there was the skills competition happening that night, All-Star game on Sunday. We go to the bar after the meltdown, and I look up at the TV, and the All-Star game is happening, and I'm like, oh.
I also had no idea
that's happening tonight. This is how much I follow and care about the All-Star game.
I realized it
legitimately
on Friday.
had no idea that it was happening a day before.
When the skills comp was happening, that's when I realized it.
I didn't even know. I was home on Friday. I don't remember what I did. Oh, that's right.
I went to the Wolves game on Friday.
Yeah.
That's what I
was.
did.
I was effed up on Friday. That's what happened to me. I forgot about that.
Same.
Thank you, Las Vegas. Anyway.
Yeah. So we did go to the Twins Daily Winter Meltdown.
We did.
Which, if you are a very loyal listener of the Giles and the Goalie podcast, that was like our all-star weekend edition of the show for a few years. But we since discontinued after a computer incident / you just could not understand us. That was actually our lone, like, we were both revved up podcast.
Pretty drunk.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that was just lost with all
and
the
then
other
last
shows.
year, neither one of us went. I was ill.
No. I don't remember what I did.
I think you just skipped it. You didn't plan on going. Or no, you had something else going on that weekend.
Yeah.
And
if
I
don't go, then there's for a good reason.
Yeah,
so.
and I was violently ill, which rarely happens to me last year. So,
yeah. But yeah, we did the Twins Daily Winter Meltdown. It was fun in the downtown
Lumber Exchange
building,
yeah.
which is right next to where it used to be the poorhouse.
Yes.
But
it was only there one time, I guess. It was a memorable time, though, I guess.
Yeah, it was. It was fun. I mean, we just kind of looked like the out of place redheaded stepchildren.
It doesn't help that we wear hockey jerseys to it every time, and people are very confused, and people
that's our thing.
Feel the need to bring up to the fact of us that it's weird that we're wearing hockey jerseys to a baseball event.
But I want to. It's winter.
And we're like, yeah, we know it's cold out. We wear hockey jerseys because it's hockey season.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone else is wearing Twins apparel. Mm-hmm. Why do we need to wear Twins apparel?
I'm going to stand out.
Well, right. I literally had someone yell at me for wearing a Montreal Canadiens jersey to this event.
So we did stand in the back next to the auction table, which
was great for you.
I did score a Jim Craig signed 1980 USA jersey.
I'm still blown away by that.
Which I thought was stealing for the amount that I got it for.
It absolutely was.
But then my companion for the evening got all liquored up, and she decided to make a play for the Stephon Diggs signed jersey right at the last minute. And the best part of that was she wins it, which it was still a decent price, so I wasn't complaining about it.
Yeah, it was bad.
Because I can make a nice nice shrine to that.
Uh-huh.
We get to the table to pay for the Diggs jersey, and the guy says to her, okay, it's, what was it? It was like $150 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I look at her, and she just looks at me, and it's like straight out of Parks and Rec, where it's just like, money, please.
Well, the problem
like,
is she knew you had cash on you.
Yeah, that was my
so
error. I shouldn't have done
that's
that.
all on you. I mean, these are the lessons you learn when you get married, Giles. That if you have cash on you, your wife cannot know.
And the best part was the next morning I woke up and I remembered that I purchased 2 jerseys that night. Oh,
I will stand by that Jim Craig purchase all day because that was a great deal.
that was stealing.
Yeah.
So I am proud of that. The best part of the Winter Meltdown, though, which 1A is you always get to see John Bonus.
Oh yeah,
And
he throws the best party in town.
He does. Nobody throws a party quite like him.
No.
But the best part was, as per just about every Winter Meltdown I've ever attended, I always make a point to talk to the Twins beat writer for the Star Tribune, Lavelle Neal.
Yes.
So I did again this time, and I had introduced myself as per the norm, and I told him, I said, I don't know why, but you still follow me on Twitter. And I have like roughly 4 baseball tweets per calendar year.
Yeah.
And so then he said, what's your name again? So I said, my name is Giles. He goes, oh yeah, I follow you for the Le Grand Omelette gifts. And I literally hit the deck.
Yeah.
I was in tears. I was laughing so
I
hard.
haven't seen you laugh that hard in a long time.
And if you're not familiar with that was a throwback to the Charlie Coyle age of the Minnesota Wild, in which we have a good story on that on podcasts from seasons gone by.
It must have been season 2.
I think that's a season 2 episode.
You told that story.
Was that a Nate Wells episode?
I don't remember. We did an episode or 2 with Nate at Tom Reed's, but I don't know if you told the story yet.
Yeah, so if you want further background...
That might have been season 1 with Charlie. Come to think of it.
I think it was season 2.
Maybe.
But either way,
know.
if you want further clarification on that, go back into the podcast history and find the episode, The Big Omelet, and get the full story. But if you know that story, as Tom Schreier did, who was standing right next to me, he just was just about as hysterical as I was.
It's a good story.
I could not believe that Lavelle remembers the Le Grand Omelette gifts, which sadly have been discontinued.
R.I.P.
Yeah,
gone too soon.
So and then it took me like half the morning the next day to remember that.
Yeah.
Like I just, I swear I did not drink that much.
Well.
Maybe we did when we went to eat.
It was deceptive because so many beers. You guys were switched over to the hard liquor.
I was hammering the porters.
Yeah, we went to Runyon's first and had some delicious wings, and
oh yeah.
So I think the amount of drinks we had crept up on us because by the end of the night, by the time we hit Lone Oak,
well, thankfully we did plan ahead for this. Neither of us were comfortable with driving to the event because we knew
we know better
what's involved. So we did Uber there, and then the lovely Roz picked us up and sober cabbed us back.
Yeah. That poor
to home.
girl.
Yeah, she's a saint.
Yeah.
That was our great Winter Meltdown story, which
good times, always good times.
I honestly can't remember the last time I was in tears of laughter. It was amazing. So
good stuff.
I don't really know where else this show is going to go. That was literally all the notes I had. The Wild are on bye, so there's nothing going on.
Yeah. You want to talk about that awesome Red Wings game?
No.
No? Yeah, me neither.
I literally turned it off. I was so disinterested.
Yeah, well, and that was the night of Zion. So Zion debuted that night.
The Wolves were on too. We had the Wolves, we had Zion, and then we had the Wild. And
there's 2 different wrestling shows on that night too.
I really tried to stick with the Wild, but that game was just so disinteresting.
You know, and I heard a lot of people talk about must wins, and I don't know. I get it if you lose to Detroit, that looks horrific. But I don't think there's anything to be gained from that game either. Like, you win that game and they won it handily, and it's like, well, okay, this doesn't change anything where this team is, because Detroit is brutal. So, yeah, it's a must-win, but it's not a must-win that actually means anything, because you win that game and it's not like some kind of stupendous weight is lifted off your shoulders. It's like, okay, you did literally the bare minimum an NHL team is expected to do these days, and that's beat the Red Wings, and that's it. And so, I don't know. I just didn't – there was nothing for me to take away from that game.
I don't know if I can ever say a game against a 11-win hockey team is a must-win in
Well, people
January.
were citing it in that the Wild needed to win. They needed – you know, they were in a swoon. They needed to break out of said swoon, and beating the Red Wings, again, minimum expectations.
And as we're at the break, the Wild are 5 points out of the last wild card spot.
Yeah.
But they do also have a game in hand. They have 2 games in hand, actually, over the Golden Knights, who are the holder of that.
Well, Arizona's tied points-wise, and they have 1 game in hand on them. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It just... And it looked like the Wild were going to S the bed early on, as absolutely everything was just going weirdly. And as I even tweeted, Vegas had the Wild at such heavy favorites. It just felt like every time you see the Wild as such heavy favorites like that, they find a way to S the bed.
Right.
So they got their way out of it.
Yeah.
Credit to them, but I don't know. A must win, I don't really believe that. Yeah.
No, I'm with you. It is weird. It feels weird, and we can kind of talk about this in generalities, I guess. The Wild being 5 points out, which, isn't a ton, but it feels like 50 points. I mean, it feels like at least 10 points out, which is kind of insurmountable at this point in the season. So, I don't know, at the All-Star break, it's kind of a meaningful notch in the season. I don't think that they intend on packing it in just yet, but do you get the feeling that they're going to sell more at the deadline?
Yes.
Yeah, I do too, and I think that that's probably the smart move, and that's what a lot of folks want them to do. And then, of course, people are going to inevitably complain when they do actually sell the deadline. But, I don't know, it just feels like that sentiment is gaining momentum, that sentiment is heating up. That, okay, now is the time to move a Jonas Brodin. Now is the time to move Jason Zucker if the deal makes sense. Now is the time to move, insert player here. So it feels like we're getting closer to that.
This is my worry with the trade deadline that's coming up on the 24th of February. We're less than a month away.
Ooh.
This is my worry here. My worry is the Wild are going to come out of the bye. They're going to go on some kind of 8-2, 7-3 kind of run,
they
take
totally
them right up to the trade deadline, and it'll be enough to make them stand pat because they'll be right back in the thick of the wild card race.
Yeah.
So they'll stand pat, they'll do nothing, and then you just lather, rinse, repeat, and then they'll go into a March swoon.
Mm-hmm.
And they will end up picking 11th in the draft in June.
So the only thing that, might prevent this from happening is currently their next 5 games features 4 playoff teams. And their next 10 games features 7 playoff teams. So there is some hope. Not a great amount, but there is some hope that they don't do that, and that oh, sorry, it was 8 actually. So 8 out of their next 10 is against playoff teams. So they're going to be against Boston. They get a reprieve against Chicago, but then Vancouver, Dallas, Colorado, Vegas, all playoff teams currently. Rangers and Sharks, poop. And then, again, they make the Western swing, Vancouver and Edmonton. for the next 10 games. So that's a tough. It's a lot of home games.
Yeah, 7 out of the next 8 are at home.
Yeah, 7 of the next 8 are at home. But of those games, 1, 2, 3, 4 are against playoff teams. So, we'll see. We'll see how that shakes out. But that, for those who are on the tank wagon, as we'll call it, for those on the tank wagon, that might help them to not do exactly what you say they're going to do, which I wholeheartedly believe they're going to do, because they can beat playoff teams. We've seen it. We've seen them play with anybody, and that's the unique skill of the Minnesota Wild, is being able to play to any level of competition presented to them. And so, yeah, we'll see how that turns out.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that it's probably at the point where the Wild need to sell.
Sure.
And we've touched on this a few times, but I just can't get my head off of that 7 or 8 out of the next 10 they're going to roll off and just completely derail any front office plans.
You're not wrong.
They should sell. They need to sell Marcus Foligno while his value's high.
I would agree.
They need to sell Jonas Brodin while his value's high.
Agreed.
And I put this out there last week, I think, on Twitter, that the Wild need to quit selling players when their value is low. They need to start selling off some of these players when their value is high. And it's just a ridiculous trend that seemingly has happened time and again with this team. So I would prefer them to stockpile some draft capital for the next couple of seasons, because Lord knows they could use that. But if they do roll off 8 of the next 10 or whatever, then all bets are off, because we know how much this organization just loves to creep into the back door of the playoffs.
Yeah, and this year it kind of seems like the year to do it, right? Like, you look at the Pacific playoff picture, and it's like just bizarro world NHL. The Vancouver Canucks are currently leading the division. The Edmonton Oilers are solidly in a playoff spot. That just goes to show you how wacky this year's playoff picture is. The Flames are #actually good. And then you've got Arizona and Vegas in wildcard spots. So if this is the year where a not good Wild team could creep into the playoffs and do absolutely nothing, this is one of those years. And this is what fans are afraid of when they're on aforementioned tank wagon. And it's not looking good for that. I have the same fears that you have, that they're going to weasel their way into the playoffs for no reason.
Yeah. All right. Let's check out what we've got in our mailbag.
Ooh.
Because we put it out there for everyone to punch in with whatever you want us to talk about this week, or just ask questions, because it's a bye week. Everyone's gone, and yeah, there's no news.
No. Hopefully we can expound on these questions a little bit.
Yeah. So let's start with the first question. Comes from a friend of the show, Dave Schwartz.
Oh, nice.
Dave asks, I think what everyone wants to know is, when are you having Dave Schwartz back on? I'll hang up and listen.
Well, Dave, we've got a strict no guest policy now.
If we were smart, which I'm not. We would have had a guest on this week for our bye week show.
Yes.
Would have been a perfect time.
Yes. To
have somebody like yourself come on, but no, we didn't think that far ahead.
No, we sure didn't.
So yeah, we might sometime soon. We might try reopening the guest portion of the show, but we'll see.
Yeah, and it helped when we had access to a fancy studio where we could have people call in, and it was really easy and kind of, we don't
like right
do
next
that
door
anymore. Well, yeah, I mean, like, yeah, we're not good. We're not good members of our own organization where we don't use the studio available to us anymore because it's downtown. We don't like that.
No. Yeah, so that's from, we should just have a Dave Schwartz, Brian Reynolds mashup podcast.
I don't know if we can
hammer that out.
I don't know if we can handle those two personalities.
Yeah. Okay. Morpheus from the Matrix asks, do you think the hesitation to trade Dumba stems from the Wild not wanting to miss out on the next Brent Burns? What do you think about possibly trying to sign Torrey Krug? So I'm going to take the first question, and we can think of an answer for the next one. But I don't know. That was 2 general managers ago, so I don't know if there's gun shy about trading Dumba because you don't want the next Brent Burns. Right. I just think everyone sees that there's just good untapped potential with Dumba, and I'll firmly plant my flag into the fact that Dumba should not be traded, and that you should at least give him next year to try and get it together, because it just seems like one way or another just things aren't clicking right now for him off of that injury last year, which was not minor by any means.
Right. And it goes back to what you were talking about before. Don't sell low. I mean, this could, arguably, this could not be a lower point for Dumba's career. Hopefully, it swings back up and he can, reach the heights that we know he can reach. But I don't know of a time where Dumba has had less value than right now. And that's unfortunate, and that's really kind of hurting him and the team. But that's the reality of it, is that he hasn't produced right now nearly to the level that people would expect, and he's getting a little bit older. He's not, he's no longer a 21-year-old prospect that people can drool over. Now he's just kind of, it looks as though he may have peaked last year before the injury, because he was well on his way to a phenomenal season, and obviously hasn't rebounded well from that injury. So, I don't like it just because don't sell low. Like you're going to sell low on, perhaps one of your best assets at this point.
And as for the Torrey Krug question,
why is this a thing?
I don't see it personally. I think the Wild are good at defensemen. Like, even if they move Jonas Brodin, I think there's some young defensemen who can step up and into the lineup. So I don't see the need to go out and sign Torrey Krug for $4 or $5 million on the cap when you can have somebody much cheaper on there and do a decent job at replacing Jonas Brodin. So I would say pass in that regards, but that could always change if a lot of defensemen get moved. So,
well, is there something that I'm missing about Torrey Krug where he's? Is this just a name that Morpheus threw out for us, or?
I think so.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know.
I'm going to advocate signing any left-handed defenseman at this point. I mean, you just don't need him. You just really don't need him. If there's any strength, if there's any absurd depth in this organization, it's left-handed defenseman. This is the reason for trading away Jonas Brodin, is because he's a left-handed defenseman.
Yeah. So let's see what is next here. Would help if I don't close out of this stupid tweet.
Yeah.
Shane LeClaire wants to have us go on about the power play and why they won't put Yul Eriksson Ek on. Well, that's a bloody good point, because as we have, hammered on this show time and time again, well, don't like to give their young players, quality time in key areas like power play or top six or, whatever.
Penalty kill even.
Yeah. So, I mean, your guess is as good as mine, but, giving more minutes and ice time to Yul Eriksson Ek is never a bad thing, in my opinion, especially if the season continues to kind of roll downhill. Yeah. Then I would be all for giving Yul Eriksson Ek all the time in the world on the ice.
Yeah, I don't understand it either. I feel like it's not that Yul Eriksson Ek is in the doghouse. I don't think that it's that severe. But it just seems like he's not getting the time that he probably deserves, and I don't know the reason for that. And it seems like I don't get it. I don't understand why that is. I mean, it seems like he's, maybe it's just that he's pigeonholed as this like 200-foot game kind of guy that doesn't just doesn't deserve that kind of look. But points per 60, he's fourth on the team.
Right.
Behind Foligno, which is, again, we've talked about him. Sell. Kevin Fiala, who apparently Tony Abbott was the only person who knew that he was a game breaker aside from Paul Fenton before the season started. And Eric Stahl, who you would kind of expect to be in that mix. But yeah, fourth on the team in points per 60 minutes. That's not anything to sneeze at. And if you're looking for somebody to take up the mantle of a second-line center with Mikko Koivu, slowly fading away, and if you're looking for, I guess you can make a great argument that Eric Stahl should get a fair amount of power play time because that's kind of his forte. Sure, but Yul Eriksson should definitely be on the second unit. And I think that's kind of the point that our listener is making here. And I'm with you. I'm here for it. And he's not getting that time. It's just, let me see what time he's getting for power play here. Yul Eriksson is currently getting, well, that doesn't tell me anything. God damn it. NHL, you're just the worst. Just the absolute worst. Is they just don't not giving me any time on ice information when I look at power play.
No.
There we go.
The NHL there we go. Giving you statistics you want would be an upgrade from what they give you.
Right, and so I look for power play statistics, and it's on a different thing altogether. So currently, Yul Eriksson is 19th on the team in power play time. He has had a whopping minute 59 seconds of power play time this entire season. So it's really not any surprise why he hasn't racked up any power play points. But yeah, I mean, why not have him on the second unit? I mean, he's behind guys in power play time. Noted names like Ryan Hartman and Brendan Menell and Victor Rask has 4 times as much power play time as Yul Eriksson.
All right, Shane, you're giving me the inspiration to start a new Twitter campaign tomorrow.
Right. I mean, you could write an article about this too. You still do those once in a while, right?
Yeah, once in a while. I'm actually, I will say, I am trying to be productive.
Uh-huh.
I actually have started and am currently inching my way towards the final creation of the Bruce Boudreau GIF library.
Nice.
So that is very much.
Tremendous.
It might be actually by the end of the bye week. We might have a favorable result.
Absolutely tremendous.
But yeah, going on. Brett Marshall asked some questions that I really have to hammer here.
Okay.
There are rumors NHL wants to do throwback jerseys. Which 5 teams would you be most and least excited to see throwbacks for?
Ooh, that's a great question, Brett. Brett just he gets us. I gotta say,
he put that first.
He did, and he's a former guest on the show, former Wild Extra alumni, great kid. Got excited for. The Mighty Ducks have to be up there. I mean, if they could wear those sweaters
Number 1, ding.
on the ice again, that would just be tops. Like, that would just be good old-fashioned
good fun.
Yep. Another team that's maybe not as obvious, Pittsburgh Penguins. I've always kind of...
They have a good set.
I've always opined. I've always kind of, made my love for the Mario Lemieux, Jaromir Jagr era jerseys being a big fan. We have yet to see the diagonal Pittsburgh jersey since it was killed off in 1997. It is not returned.
Nope.
We have not seen that jersey since 1997, and I don't know why. And it's a fantastic jersey. And was it stealing from the Rangers, with the whole diagonal thing? Well, sure, but it's also a very classic jersey layout for hockey. I don't think the Rangers should be offended, and I would like to see that jersey back. So that's another one that I would add to the list.
I'm going to throw in the Los Angeles Kings.
Yes.
I don't go if you go the
Gretzky
era silver and black, or if you go with the form blue and gold.
It's a win-win.
You're winning either way.
It's an absolute win-win.
The LA Kings would be just at the top of my list.
Yeah, positively, absolutely. I think that the Canucks did a great thing by bringing back the flying skate jersey, so that is something that I would be excited to see. And I'll same thing with the Coyotes, bring back the Kachina jerseys, their thirds. Very, very nice for those. Calgary Flames as well. There's lots of teams doing very well with throwbacks right now.
Mm-hmm.
Another one, and this is 100% completely self-serving and selfish. I want to see the Hasek era Sabres jerseys back again.
Yes.
It's so 90s. Objectively, not a great jersey. It's a good jersey, but it's not a great jersey. But I have so much nostalgia for those jerseys. I just love them. It's a sneering, angry animal that just screams 1996. But I don't care. I really do want to see them back.
So to flip it around and do 5 teams you'd least, I don't know if we'd get 5, but teams we'd least be excited to see. I'm going to kick it off, and I'm going to take the Winnipeg Jets, the current iteration of the Winnipeg Jets, because literally their throwbacks are the Atlanta Thrashers, which nobody ever needs to see again. Those jerseys, whatever jersey you pick out, nobody needs to see those.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I think another team that I think we probably don't want to see throwbacks of, there's one exception, but the Dallas Stars. I liked the Star jerseys they won the Cup in. That's the end of the list. I don't like anything they've had since then, Mooterus included. Certainly don't want to see the moving day jerseys, the plain blacks and the plain whites. And for the love of effing God, we don't want to see them in North Star jerseys.
Nope.
So that would be something that I go with the black and green that you won the Cup in. That's it. I don't want to see any single solitary jersey from your history aside from that one single jersey, black and green. Don't show me anything else, because so help me God, if they wear North Stars jerseys or any other crap from their Dallas history, it'd be ugly. Not that I like their current jerseys.
Tampa Bay is another one.
Meh.
Right now, this is their best set.
Agreed.
Of the uniforms,
except for the third jersey.
Right, but anything past, like, you'd think they'd go to the 90s, and you just don't need to bring those back.
Not really, no.
I think they're really good with what they have right now.
As much as I kind of like the 90s jerseys from them, just from a pure, unfiltered nostalgia standpoint, they're not that good of a nostalgia jersey, so we just don't need to bring them back. And that third jersey with the waves and the don't even get me started on that piece of garbage. I think we're in agreement on all of these. I think that these are all pretty good. Another team that doesn't need to mess with things, or I will say, again, a team with one exception. So the Rangers have done different variations of jerseys, and the only one that I've ever liked is the Liberty jersey. And so, just like with the Stars, bring back the Navy Liberty jersey or nothing else. Don't even bother with anything else aside from bringing back that Gretzky Liberty jersey.
Brett now also asks, he's got a few in here, which there's hockey, there's food. He's covering all the bases.
God bless you, Brett.
The food one is, should macaroni and cheese be eaten with a spoon or a fork?
Ooh, I've always been a fork guy.
Oh, we agree.
I will say there's.
I mean, I'm not gonna bash somebody with a spoon. It's just my preference is always fork.
Sure. So, but it very, very much depends on the type of macaroni and cheese. If it's very soupy, so for instance, I make the classic blue box macaroni and cheese spirals, or my ride or die. Those I eat with a fork because the cheese sauce isn't super soupy. It's just on the.
I don't.
But you have, like we have in the break room here, Panera mac and cheese. Very creamy.
Soupy. Yeah.
Kind of, you eat all the shells and you're left with literally half of a container of cheese sauce, which is delicious. That I will rock a spoon with because there's lots of sauce there.
I love mac and cheese, but I just can't deal with it when it's too soupy.
Really? Okay.
Like I
can party with either.
I mean, I'll still try to eat it, but I can't deal with it. So
I will take cheese in any form possible.
That's fair.
If you injected liquid cheese into my blood veins, I would enjoy it.
Thoughts on the Shooting Stars Skills Competition event? Well, I have to be honest. We would have had to have watched it. So we're going to have to
that was the one where they shot from the second level of the arena.
I think I saw
right?
Kane won it.
Okay.
Oh.
Whatever.
Sidebar. I have a grievance to air. I have a big fat grievance to air with NBC, who put out this absolutely atrocious all-decade team.
Well,
Patrick Kane just reminded me of it. Like,
That's
I
fair.
agree he's on the team at right wing. It's just the other atrocities that are on this list. So if you're not familiar with it, the NHL and NBC announced their all-decade team.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was over All-Star Weekend at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And it was Sidney Crosby, Alex Ovechkin, and Patrick Kane were the
Mm-hmm.
forwards, although they weirdly had Ovechkin at center and Crosby at left wing.
What?
That made no sense. Yeah. When they put the lineup out there, it went from left
I
to
did
right.
see that.
Crosby, Ovechkin, which I
if you're listing them as just quote-unquote forwards,
right.
whatever.
That's fine.
Whatever.
But then this is where I really draw the line in the sand is at defense. They put Drew Doughty and Duncan Keith, and then in goal was Marc-Andre Fleury. Let me say that again. In goal was Marc-Andre Fleury.
So I am a Marc-Andre Fleury stan, so I will argue with you a little bit.
I like Marc-Andre Fleury, but is he the best goalie of the decade?
No.
Absolutely
No,
not.
he's not.
Not even close.
So I think the argument is made, and this also applies to Doughty and Keith, which is why this whole list is
what do they
complete
have?
bull.
What do they all have in common on this godforsaken list?
They've all won a bunch of cups. So, and I will accept that argument for the goalie because the playoffs are so goaltending specific and they're so goaltending dependent. I'll kind of listen to that, in that is Tom Brady actually the best quarterback of all time? No. But has he won the most championships? Obviously. So in many people's eyes, that makes him the best quarterback of all time. And Joe Montana, same thing. I'm willing to accept that argument from Marc-Andre Fleury because he was a good goalie, because he went on hot streaks that won his team cups. But the defenseman...
Oh, woof.
I mean, Drew Doughty was a great defenseman in his prime.
He's good early in the decade, but...
He was good. Duncan Keith, I mean, this guy, he's an albatross contract as we speak. Not that Doughty isn't, but what if the criteria is just cups, then tell us that. But you can't just arbitrarily throw out these players and be like, oh, these guys are the best of the whole decade. And we have no statistics whatsoever to follow this up with.
Yeah.
I mean, as you mentioned, Brent Burns and Erik Karlsson.
Yep. I was just about to...
I totally agree with your
I was
selection.
just about to give my all-decade team, which I kept the forwards the same. Then I had Brent Burns and Erik Karlsson on defense, and then Henrik Lundqvist in goal.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that at all. I think that's a fantastic all-decade team, and had they come out with it, they did a great job in the forwards. I mean, but how do you screw that up? If you have an all-decade team without Ovechkin and Crosby, I think you should get burned at the stake.
Wow.
And then adding Kane, as much as people hate it because he's a S-head, you kind of have to add him in there because he has racked up a pile of points.
Well, whoever made that list was probably sweating when they finalized the center position, and they had to pick Crosby ahead of Taves, even though Taves has 3 cups to Crosby's 2 of the decade.
The captain.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the forwards, I don't think you could screw up, quite frankly.
Well, it's the NHL and NBC.
That's true. Yeah, but I think the forwards are pretty fish in a barrel. But the defense, it's like literally the one statistic is cups.
Yeah. So okay,
like sort championships, end.
So next question is, which prospects are you most excited for outside of Kaprizov and Boldy? And I actually wanted to bring this point up. I'm going to put Alex Kovanoff as my answer to this question.
Absolutely.
And also, I saw a Russo put out on his podcast that somebody had told him that Kovanoff might go to the KHL if he's not on the Wild roster.
If he wants to, I guess.
I wouldn't want to go to Iowa either.
What's worse,
Hope she doesn't
Iowa or the middle of Russia?
Trick question. I put my flag down, and I just said, well, just put him in the NHL roster and let him have at it next year. Yeah. What do you have to lose? You're going to clear out a bunch of forwards anyway, so plug him in and let's see what he's got. Yeah. Put him on a line with Kaprizov and let's see what they have. Let's just ride. Don't let him go to Russia. I don't trust players going over there because they might not come back. So, do you have another prospect or?
I'm big on Kovanoff. I think that's a great pick. He hasn't lit things up in his very first year in Iowa, but I still like Connor Dewar. I think he's an exciting guy. A guy who can do a little bit. I think I'm not unrealistic about him. I don't think that he's going to be a top line, all-star level guy, but I think he's going to be one of those guys that's like a sneaky third liner. Almost like our love for Eric Holla. He's going to be like a guy like that, where he's a little bit of an undersized guy, but a guy who can produce and really makes you a deep hockey team. And these guys are important to have. So I like Connor Dewar. I love the Kovanoff pick. I think that this roster, this prospect cupboard is quietly getting to the point where it's solid.
Weird how it got better in the last two drafts. What's behind that?
But and that just goes to show how they were in super rough shape. Trading away all those picks. But they've rebounded fairly nicely, and you really kind of have to like that. And Boldy, certainly has turned it back on in college and is kind of finding his footing a little bit, and backing up all those folks who had to defiantly defend him over Cole Caulfield, which I still keep playing that game. But
another kind of under the radar guy, Marshall Warren, the defenseman the Wild took in the sixth round last year, having a decent season at Boston College. He fell to the sixth round of the Wild where they picked him up. A lot of people have a lot of great things to say about him. So I am quietly excited for him to continue to develop and hopefully make it to the NHL at some point. What is something you'd like to see the Wild do for the Winter Classic? Jersey type, certain event, involve certain people, etc. Make me care.
Fair. I've said this a lot, and I don't want to belabor this point, but I have to. Don't make the fans part of anything. Don't make any part of the presentation, any part of the jerseys, any part of the events. Don't make that about how great our fans are, how amazing Minnesota hockey fans are, how dedicated Minnesota hockey fans are, how, you're not selling out the XL anymore after, 1 year missing the playoffs. The fans never needed to be pandered to, and the team just felt the need to keep doing it, and now the fans have this goofy sense of entitlement, and I don't mean to just continually punch down to fans, but it's perpetuated by the team, and that's what bothers me about it. Like you said, when I asked you about the jerseys, don't put the state of hockey anywhere on those jerseys, please. I'm begging you. I don't want to see it, and if you want to have the state of hockey represented through having multiple games played surrounding the Winter Classic, kind of like almost like a Hockey Day in Minnesota type thing.
That was going to be my point. Just have Hockey Day in Minnesota around that somehow.
Well, they already have it planned for Mankato 3 weeks later, which
God, they really just killed that.
I don't know why FSN did that, because it kind of saturates things a little bit, right? Doesn't it? I think it does.
Lord. You have... I can't. I give up. God.
So I don't know. And it's FSN's deal, and I get that about Hockey Day Minnesota, and it's great, and they do a good job with that every year. But I mean, if you're ever going to take a year off, this was the year. This was the year where you take it off, or you just move it. Just move it. Make it Hockey Day Minnesota on January 1st to celebrate the Winter Classic being Minnesota. Why can't you do that? Why isn't that an option? And I don't understand. Or make it, January 1st is on a Friday next year. No. Yeah, it's on a Friday. So have it on Saturday. Have it on January 2nd. How hard is that? Make a whole long weekend of it. How hard would that have been? So now, like I said, you're spreading it out 3 weeks, and nobody's going to give a flying F about Hockey Day Minnesota when they have this Winter Classic thing to fawn over. And if you're making tough decisions on, what events to attend, which many middle-class households do, what are you going to attend? Are you going to attend the Winter Classic, and that's fanfare? Or are you going to go down to Mankato for, Hockey Day Minnesota? Well, it's not going to happen. So, I don't know. I don't understand why they didn't sync that up more. I would have loved to see it, personally.
We can go
I would have
on this
absolutely
for a
loved to see
long time, because my head literally just started to pain me when I thought about how this was screwed up.
So to answer the question in whole, somebody needs to step in and say, hey, you've got the sheet of ice on Target Field up for Friday for the Winter Classic game. Let a bunch of kids play on it on Saturday. Have a bunch of high school games on it. I mean, talk about a great way to celebrate the state of hockey. Have a bunch of games.
Yeah. Last question from Brett. Who is your least favorite NHL player of all time and why?
Oh, that's a good one.
Let me take out the list.
It's the Jericho list of 1,004 holds. I don't. There's so many.
What if we just localized it to the last decade?
Yeah, that works.
I got a whole list.
Yeah, I mean,
okay,
Landeskog.
I'm gonna go down the line. Yeah,
got to be up there.
From the last decade, Maxime Lapierre was always at the top of my hit list because the guy was just a knob. He played like a knob, and a lot of times he would just take plays off, which just bothered me to no end.
Sure.
Let's see who else. Cody McLeod, just a cheap SOB.
Oh, what a knob.
Let's see. I wasn't a big Matt Cook guy in this decade.
I hated
with his
him.
tour of Dirty with the Wild.
Yeah, he softened up a little bit with the Wild, aside from shredding Tyson Berry's knee, which may or may not have been accidental. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of his.
Oh yeah, Eric Johnson, not a big fan. He went from being beloved as a Gopher to, I hate you. I just a lot of the Avs players, they just love to go that extra step and playing dirty.
I think Patrick Waugh, as much as I love the player Patrick Waugh, I think the coach instilled a little bit of that, that just by his persona,
Trying to think of who else I don't like. I mean, if I go out of the decade, Scott Stevens is right up there at the
for
top.
one specific hit.
Him and Lapierre instantly jumped into my mind.
Yeah.
When the question was asked. I know Scott Stevens was like a Hall of Famer, but he ruined the otherwise fine career of another Hall of Famer. Right. So I hold that against him now and forever.
Sure.
There's probably more I'm going to think of, but none come to mind immediately.
Right now, currently, I think...
Oh, Steve Ott.
Oh, yeah, that guy's a tool. I think right now it's very easy to hate Brad Marchand. And
he's really good, though.
You can, and that's the thing. I can appreciate how good he is as a hockey player, but it almost makes it a little bit frustrating because he is such a fucking S-head. And so there's that... guys like Jarkko Ruutu come to mind. He's just a piece of garbage on the ice.
Oh, Todd Bertuzzi.
Oh yeah, God! I mean, just the whole.
We forget that guy.
Yeah, I don't know how we'd forgot.
Brad
that.
May.
Yeah.
Never forget that guy just sucker punches Kim Janssen in the playoffs.
Yeah, there's it's a long
lot.
list of guys that are just really, really irritating.
There's a lot, yeah. All right, we got 2 more questions, and then we can call it a day.
Sounds good.
Night Owl submits both questions. How many games do the Wild lose before the player sale starts? Well, we kind of hit on this earlier, but I think, if they they come out of the break and they say lose 3 or 4 out of the first 5 or 6, I gotta imagine then you might start to see some increased activity on the hotline.
If Bill Guerin's doing his job, he's shopping these players already.
Well, right, and I'm just saying it might intensify and
that's fair, but it shouldn't be that way, you should be making these deals at any time,
right?
Really, if you're getting fair value, this shouldn't be bailing water out of the Titanic. This should be something where you're looking to get fair value for a player that's worth that price.
But like all NHL general managers, they'll all push it right up to the deadline because they
why not?
They don't seem to
Well,
care.
I mean, Sportsnet has a lot of coverage to fill that day, and if there isn't trades, then we've got problems.
Yeah. Then the last one from Night Owl again. Should Guerin try to accumulate picks or prospects with an eye towards Kaprizov next season? And we kind of hit on this last week and a little bit earlier, but yeah, either's good with me. I'm all for grabbing more first round picks if you can, in the hopes that if some pick higher up in the draft is available as a trade, you can move up somehow. If you have a guy there that you're not going to get at your regular spot, go get him. Just go get him. And I don't think ever having enough draft picks is a bad thing. As we kind of mentioned, the Wild prospect pool isn't as bad as maybe you let on, so I'm actually going to say draft picks. Just go with draft picks. Yeah,
I think it can't hurt you to have more draft picks, and I'm not worried about those players not being ready in time because Kaprizov is, 24 now?
He's 22.
Is he really only 22?
Yeah.
Okay, well, even better. So, I mean, you take a guy, you acquire draft picks for, let's say, this year's draft. You're getting a bunch of 18-year-olds, and they're not up in the NHL for another 5 years. Well, Kaprizov is only 27, 28 at that point. So, I'm totally fine with getting picks now with Kaprizov in mind because those guys are going to come up when he's still in the prime of his career, and they're going to be able to help him, help make this team better around him. Certainly when we get 5 years down the line and you start to look at that, maybe you want to trade for more established players, and hopefully you're a better team by then, so trading for established players is a good idea. But as of right now, I mean, you definitely want draft picks. You definitely want draft picks, or if the right prospect comes along, obviously those guys are still right around 20 years old, give or take. So, picks or prospects, it really doesn't matter a whole lot to me, but you're going to probably get better value out of draft picks at this point.
Right.
People don't like trading good prospects.
But, yeah, it might take a little bit longer to get them to the NHL, but having more draft picks is never a terrible thing.
Right.
So, yeah, that's it. Hey, it's Super Bowl week.
Yeah.
Hot damn, my favorite week of the year. My secret hidden talent in this life is my ungodly knowledge of Super Bowl trivia. As my friends can attest. And I should have given somebody the ultimate test of quizzing me on Super Bowl trivia while we were in Vegas.
Well, we did very briefly.
How did it go?
Sam and Carol did.
Did I do good?
Yes. Yeah. I don't remember.
Did I nail it? What we have to
I don't remember where or when it was because I was also hammered. But, yeah.
Yeah, so you literally can just ask me any Super Bowl question. I don't like to boast about this.
Sure.
You can literally ask me any
Well,
Super Bowl.
okay.
Just
Super
name a
Bowl
number.
1969.
Give me a Super Bowl number.
Okay, so that was Super Bowl 3.
That was Super Bowl 4.
4.
Yeah.
Okay, what was the score? 4. Wait. Yeah, 69 was 4.
Okay, what's Super Bowl 4? You bastard. That was Chiefs 23, Vikings 7.
That's what okay.
Yeah.
No, that was actually 1970. So close.
The Super Bowl III, since it was in 1969, was the famous Joe Namath guarantee. That was the, I believe that was the New York Jets 16 over the Baltimore Colts 7-7. It was a particularly hideous game.
The Colts were favored by 18 points in that game. Oh my word. Yeah, 16-7. You're correct.
Yeah, basically like the first Super Bowls, like the NFC was like every year.
Well, yeah, and actually
they were superior.
Right, and so the merger didn't happen until after Super Bowl 4, and it wasn't going to happen. But the combination of the Jets and the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl in back-to-back years kind of gave both leaderships the confidence that, hey, these are there's enough parity here to where it's not just going to be, because the Packers destroyed their opponents in the first two Super Bowls. So
that's because they had Lombardi.
Right.
Fun fact, when I saw the Super Bowl trophy at Arrowhead Stadium from Super Bowl 4, it has both the AFL and NFL logo on it, which I found pretty cool, because now they only have the NFL logo on it, because obviously there's one league. But anyway, we are big Chiefs fans, so obviously we're going for the Chiefs in the Super Bowl on Sunday, Bloody Sunday. And by God, I hope the Chiefs win, because boy, do I need some good sports things to happen.
Yeah,
so
indeed.
Go Mahomes, go Chiefs. We're going to sign out. We're going to come back next week, hopefully with some things to talk about. The Wild don't play till Friday, so odds are probably not. But I'm not complaining. It's a free week. Mm-hmm. So Ben Remington is on Twitter at Ben Remington. I'm on Twitter at Giles Farrell. Podcast is at GATG Wild Podcast. Follow Zone Coverage on Twitter at Zone Coverage MN. Thank you to CircleRock.com for sponsoring today's episode of the podcast. Check out zonecoverage.com for a lot of great written content from everyone. We did have a lot of Kobe Bryant-centric content, which a lot of our great staff put out if you were into that. I'm going to try to write something this week. No guarantees. Mm-hmm. I continue my work on the Bruce Boudreau gift library. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, maybe by the end of the week, I might have something for you. iTunes, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Google Play, Spotify. You can subscribe if you can. Subscribe, rate us if you can on specifically iTunes. That does prop us up in the algorithms, so do that as well. Thank you so much for listening to us, and we will chat with you again next week.
Later.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Gill and the Goaltender podcast.
That's not resiliency. You're making it sound like we're good. That's all. I'm done.